All right, let's do another poem. I went to poetryfoundation.org where a lot of times they actually have a good repository of just poetry in general. And on the front page, they just had a poem. And I was like, okay, I'll do this one. It's a contemporary Vietnamese American poet, Hugh Minh Nguyen. And it's a poem called Uptown, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I will read it, and then we'll have a little chat about it. Uh, so yes, Uptown, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Even though it's May and the ice cream truck parked outside my apartment is somehow certain, I have a hard time believing winter is somehow, all of a sudden, over. The worst one of my life, the woman at the bank tells me. Though I'd like to be, it's impossible to be prepared for everything. Even the mundane hum of my phone catches me off guard today. Every voice that says my name is a voice that I don't think I could possibly leave. It's unfair not to ask for the things you need. Even though I think about it often, even though leaving is a train headed somewhere I'd probably hate. Crossing Lyndale to meet a friend for coffee, I have to maneuver around a hearse that's pulled too far into the crosswalk. It's empty. Perhaps spring is here. Perhaps it will all be worth it. Even though I knew, even then, it was worth it. Staying, I mean. Even now, there is someone, somehow, waiting for me. And the source of this is Poetry, December 2018. So hot off the presses as far as poetry is concerned. So, when I first read this poem, I went, oh, I don't have anything to say about this poem. This poem is not resonating for me. It's just a dud. For me. Except it's a dud. It's that I'm a bit of a dolt. And it takes me a long time to read books. And so it shouldn't surprise me that it doesn't take me 5 minutes to read a poem. It takes me days to read a poem, to kind of go over it again and again, and just sort of let it sit and percolate down. And then suddenly I'll be reading it one time, and suddenly, I'll start noticing things, and things will start to pull out at me. I guess the things that pulled out at me, at least so far, as it's still very, very, very fresh to me, is the idea of it's a poem that uses it's. It's impossible to be prepared for everything. It's unfair not to ask for the thing. It was worth it. Staying, I mean. And then there's just like, it's the provisionals. It's like, even though it starts out, even though, and it's somehow, the ice cream truck is somehow certain. And echoing that somehow certain at the end, we get, even now, there is someone somehow waiting for me. So we go from somehow certain to somehow it's actually going to be there. There's somebody there waiting for me. So it's, I like that there's a lot of like kind of unspecificity in the poem about like, it's possible. It's unfair. It was worth it. And there's this uncertainty, but it's kind of contrasted with, you've got the title of the poem, which is a very specific place. It's Uptown, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And he's crossing Lyndale to meet a friend for coffee. So even though it's a place where, there's a lot of uncertainties of like, is it, I don't even know, like, is winter actually over? It's like the ice cream truck seems to be certain, but I'm not. But like, but I am right here. This is the poet, this poet's persona is right here. He's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Uptown, crossing Lyndale. So it's got that specificity to it. It does have this thing of when he's crossing Lyndale, it's like he has to maneuver around a hearse, and it's an empty hearse. And it's like, it's one of these things of you have to maneuvering around an empty hearse. Are you maneuvering around your own mortality? And like, it's an empty hearse. It's like, well, we're holding a space for you in a way. And, you better watch as you cross that street both ways, because you might end up filling that hearse. but we're going from a winter to a spring, and just that thing of like, even now there is someone somehow waiting for me, which is very much a like, there's that friend, there's the friend waiting for me. There's definitely kind of just a thing of like, oh, there's somebody in this life who cares about me, who is waiting for me, and it's a friend. But that there's also seems to be kind of that resonance of it's going to be maybe it's going to be something more than a friend as well. And you kind of get that, like, there's a disaster thinking of it's impossible to be prepared for everything, which is very much, I can tap into that. There's that disaster thinking of like, oh God, it's impossible to prepare for everything, but I'm gonna think about all the terrible things that can happen. That kind of disaster thinking. But it's unfair not to ask for the things you need, which is one of those wonderful little interjections in there of like, it's unfair not to ask for the things you need. So like, who are you being unfair to? You're being unfair to yourself not to ask for the things you need, which is it's a beautiful thought to have at the kind of the center point of this poem of like, it's, you need somebody, you need to have people that care about you in life, and it's unfair not to ask for that, which is something that is lovely in that. So yeah, I don't know if I've particularly captured everything in this poem, but this is like, it's lovely sometimes when you read a poem through and it's like, oh, there's not much there, but then you just sort of let it sit and you let it kind of percolate through you for a while, and then maybe you come out the other side and it's like, no, nothing ever really did come out for me. Or like this poem here, it just like it grows inside you, which is wonderful, which is I think a part of what I love about poetry is like, oh no, this is just a dud, and then it starts coming alive inside of you, and it's like when something comes alive inside of you, that is a beautiful gift that a poet gives you. So, Hugh Min Win, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your poem. More videos later.